The archives of the Jedi Order are vast, but they are incomplete. For thousands of years, the Jedi have curated history to paint themselves as the eternal guardians of light. But if you look deeper into the vaults the Council doesn't want you to see, a darker truth emerges. This is the restricted section. Before the Republic, before the Skywalker bloodline, before the Rule of Two, there was a timeline of total balance, a time when Jedi and Sith did not exist. Today, we are breaking the seal on the most ancient records in the galaxy. We're looking back to the beginning of it all, the birth of the Force users, and the catastrophic mistake that split the galaxy in two forever. Long before the Clone Wars, there was Tython, deep in the deep core, mysterious pyramid ships called the Though-Yor gathered beings from across the stars who were sensitive to the Force. These pilgrims became the Jedi. It meant mystic center. On Tython, the goal wasn't to be a warrior of light, it was to stay in the middle. Tython had two moons, Ashla, the light, and Bogan, the dark. If a student became too angry or hateful, they were sent to Bogan to find peace. Or Ashla, their respective moons. You were supposed to be in the middle, to be mid, to be always at balance. So if you were too passive, you were sent to Bogan. If you were too aggressive, you were sent to Ashla to balance yourself out. But, and this is important, this is what the modern Jedi forget. They always forget that if a student became too passive, they were sent to Ashla to find their fire. You see, modern Jedi always felt you had to be passive, or not passive, I should say, in the light, at peace, detached from your emotion, right? You couldn't feel emotion, you weren't told to have attachment. But in this time, they welcomed both sides. They wanted you always at peace, not too far in the light, not too far in the dark, right in the middle. That perfect balance. But, the Jedi felt like balance was complete light. That's not balance. Too much light is still too much light. You need to be in the middle. You need to have both sides of the cord. Now, the Jedi did not use lightsabers. They used swords of steel, forged in the Force. But balance, back then it was a fragile thing. Eventually, there was a group of Jedi that decided that the dark side was a corruption that needed to be destroyed. And while this sparked the first Force Wars, the light won, but the Jedi Order was shattered. And thus, the Jedi, as we know them now, were born. But in their victory, they made a fatal error. They stopped seeking balance and started fearing the dark. There was a period now of 100 years of darkness. Now, you have to fast forward several thousand years. The Jedi Order is now a formal institution serving the Republic. Enter Ajunta Paul. Paul was a brilliant Jedi Master, but he was a researcher at heart. He discovered that through the Force, one could manipulate life itself. Alchemy. He learned how to twist plants and animals into new, powerful forms. He thought he was evolving the galaxy. Now the Jedi Council thought he was playing God. The Council banned his research. Pal and his followers refused to stop. Now this triggered the Second Great Schism, which is also known as the 100-Year Darkness. Now for a century, the galaxy bled. This wasn't a war of rebels versus empire. This was a civil war between brothers. It culminated at the Battle of Corvus. Now the Jedi won, but they couldn't bring themselves to execute their former friends. They did something much, much worse. They stripped them of their weapons, put them on transport ships, and exiled them into the uncharted regions of space. They hoped the darkness would simply just starve. Now, as you can tell, it didn't. Now this became the birth, the genesis of the Sith. The exiles, they didn't die. They landed on a desert world called Corman. Now there, they found a species of red-skinned, primitive warriors who were naturally sensitive to the dark side. Now these people, they called them the Sith. They were called the Sith. Now to the Sith, Ajunta Pall and his Dark Jedi weren't outcasts. They were gods fallen from the sky. Using their superior technology and force alchemy, the exiles enslaved the population. They interbred with them. They took the name of the species and turned it into a title. Ajunta Pall became the first Dark Lord of the Sith. Now, the Jedi thought they had exiled their problems, when in reality, they had planted the seeds of every empire, every Death Star, and every galactic purge that would follow for the next 7,000 years. So, here's the question the Council doesn't want you to ask. If the Jedi hadn't been so afraid of Ajunta Pall's research, would the Sith ever existed? Was it the dark side that destroyed the peace, or was it the Jedi's refusal to accept anything other than the light? The records here, in the restricted section, are clear. The Sith didn't invade the galaxy. The Jedi created them. If you want to see more files we've pulled from the vaults, lore deep dives, what ifs, and the truth behind the Force, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell. This is just the beginning of what we found.
This is just the beginning.
I'm Jedi Master Matthias Wren, and you've been cleared for access to the restricted section. See you in the next file.